Fantastic. So welcome to this session. It's all about workplace wellness, and the official title is New Approaches to Workplace Wellness, Innovation, Education, and Accountability. So to delve further into that topic, we've got three amazing panelists here today, and I will do a brief introduction, but I'm going to let you guys actually explain more about your backstory and who you are. So first of all, we have Nick Porter, HR Manager from Planet Organic. And then we've got Cate Murden, who is the founder of Push, which is a business consultancy that is grounded in human behavior. And finally, we've got Chieu, who is the co-founder of Perkbox, which is Europe's fastest growing employee experience platform.
That's right.
Amazing. Okay, so could you guys tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
So my name's Nick. I am an HR manager at Planet Organic, but I am pretty much exclusively responsible for all of the recruitment that goes on with the business, bringing in the external and moving around internal people.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Cate and I'm the founder of Push. I should prefix this, by the way, that I've just tried CBD oil for the first time. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I do know whatever does happen, I'm not going to care about it, so it's all right. Anyway, so I'm the founder of Push. I started Push now, 4.5 years ago, we were just saying. And Push, as we said, is a business consultancy grounded in human behaviour. It was started basically with the intention, I worked in advertising for 16 years beforehand, as I like to call them, 16 long and drunken years. And I was very good at that. Anyway, to cut a really long story short, I ended up being signed off with stress, which, if anyone has experienced that, it's actually pretty shit. And I wanted to do something about it, and that's how I came up with the concept for Push. Push came from a genuine desire to ensure that no one else went through what I did. And we've been working quite a lot, and I'm really proud to share this actually. We've been working quite a lot recently on what our mission statement is. And we say now that our mission statement is about ensuring that no one feels like they're just existing or that they dread going to work. So that's really everything that my company's about.
Cool, great. I got this. Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm good.
Do you want to keep on?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Chieu. I'm the co-founder of Perkbox. Perkbox, what we say is a employee experience platform. We're growing really fast, done really well because we're a mission-led business. We really want businesses to succeed by engaging with their staff. We really believe that employees all deserve a great workplace. So we started out with perks and benefits, and we've expanded beyond that now. So we have Perkbox Insights, which is a post survey where you can really understand the sentiment of the employees and how to improve them. We have Perks Recognition, which is a gamification of the workplace where you can really talk about the culture, you can motivate people, you can give them badges and what have you online. And we also have Perkbox Medical, which is a great new medical package that we're adding onto it. So we're a lot more than perks, and it's quite an exciting place for us. We're growing rapidly, but the key thing is that we give back as much as we can to the community as well. So that's one of the reasons I'm here.
Fantastic. So, to move further into the topic, setting the scene, we all know that the workplace is changing a lot at the moment, and the wellness industry itself is booming. So the two are colliding, and pressure is mounting on employers to start seriously considering their employee value proposition, where well-being strategy lies into that. So for you guys, what I wanted to find out more about, I guess, is what are people doing well at the moment? Which companies are actually doing things that stand out? What needs to change in this area, and how vital is innovation in this space? So, Chieu, if we start with you, because you got involved with Perkbox in 2015?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, what was the sort of workplace wellness scene like at that time compared to now?
Sure. No, it's changed a lot. I think because of our success, it's a testament to the fact that society is changing. HR has a bigger place at the top table. People are listening. It's not just the MD and the finance directors calling the shots now. The media has really helped. I think education around well-being across the board. So there's mental well-being, physical well-being, financial well-being, right? So these topics are being more and more widely discussed. And so people cannot ignore it anymore. So over the years, that's what I've witnessed. And it's easy for us to approach these businesses and talk about these topics because they've heard it from elsewhere. And I think that's really important. So that's really what we're seeing, and the trend is continuing with a cultural shift in understanding some of these softer things that are not really financially driven, but are very, very important. So it's an educational shift amongst the sort of the execs and the leadership team that's allowed us to play a part and be more active in this space.
What would you say is driving that shift? Is it just societal, or is there something else in the workplace itself?
there's quite a few things. Obviously, society, in terms of like what is popular, what is being spoken about across the media, like mental well-being, right? It's one of the things that you cannot see, but a lot of companies are not prepared for it. So if an employee goes up to the employer and says, look, I'm having a nervous breakdown, I'm suffering from what I think is depression, most of the managers wouldn't know what to do. So these things are becoming more and more real. And so when we talk to them, it becomes real to them, and they're really reacting to it. And also technology. Technology has really helped us be more transparent, and the fact that you can measure these things, you can, with insights, for example, is very powerful. So you can actually measure how people feel, right? Not just what they've done, whether they're hitting the OKRs or the targets. It's a lot more than that. It's about what are the drivers to success, and mental well-being, physical, financial well-being are the drivers. And I think it's an educational piece as well.
So just picking up on what you said about mental well-being, Cate, you started Push based on your own personal experience, and we just touched on that a little bit in your intro. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened, what led to that, and the kind of your vision now for the workplace wellness sector?
Yeah, so as I said, I worked in media for quite a long time beforehand, and I'd loved it for a really, really long time. Towards the end of it, I think I loved it a bit less. I think now, with the benefit of a bit of hindsight and a bit more self-awareness, I could see that actually my values and media's values had completely changed, and whereas previously they'd been aligned, they weren't anymore. So I think that was at the heart of it. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'd just been promoted, so there was a lot of imposter syndrome going on. For ultimately, there was quite a big crisis point with my mum being ill, and that was my kind of the final thing, that the crisis point that got me out of there, as it were. But I suppose really what it all boils down to, and certainly for me now, why I'm so driven with this, is that I just firmly believe, when I look more into what was happening then and what is continuing to happen now at even greater pace, is quite simply that the way that we're working isn't working. When you look at the fact that and I don't believe that this figure is quite right, we're 10% more hours are being spent on work in the last 10 years. I don't think that figure's been recorded quite correctly. I think it's actually higher than that. Productivity is completely flat, and yet instances of mental health since 1983 have gone up by 40%. Something's not right. And the fact of the matter for me is that I believe that workplaces are both the problem and the issue, but they are also the opportunity of change. And they are the thing that I believe which will actually make a difference if we get it right. And what I mean by that is that I think that the problems that we have is that what is tripping modern business up, or I'd go as far to say what is killing modern business, are traditional, old processes, practices, ways of working. And we have to fundamentally change those in order to ensure that individuals function better, and then consequently those businesses work better as well. Sorry, that was a bit of a rant, wasn't it?
No, I was going to follow up with that. So with what you're doing with Push, how do you come into a company, like saying you're trying to overhaul the culture? Where do you start?
Well, very good question. So I suppose that's why we changed our business model. So when Push first started, we were very much in the kind of corporate wellness, very much the kind of mental health space, and we go out and we look after individuals. Now, listen, I wholeheartedly still believe in that, and that's absolutely what Push does. We do a whole a fully encompassing program where we will look after individuals, everything from coaching, psychotherapy, exercise, nutrition, Beyonce dancing, if it, whatever is needed with that individual to make them feel better. But what I realised very quickly in doing this stuff is that actually we'd go and we'd help the individuals, and the challenge would be is that they then go back into the workplace and the same thing would bloody happen to them again. So it was this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I realised that actually what we were doing is that we were dealing with the symptoms rather than causes. And I very quickly wanted to change that. Or as someone very eloquently put it, you can't out-yoga a bad boss. I was like, yes, that's it. So I realised that actually what I wanted to do was to start getting into the companies and looking at how we could affect those as well. And I think really what we need to do, so that's why Push has evolved to being a business consultancy that goes in and helps not only the individuals but the teams and the companies. And we look at culture, and we look at change, and we look at leadership, and we look at personal and professional development. But everything comes back to the point of understanding how people feel, and then how you can evolve that. So the critical thing with all of it will be about talking to people in the first place. And I know that this is what you believe in, Nick. You have to understand what's going on within the company, how people are feeling now, and then what you can do with that to shift them on to get them feeling better, and then consequently working better. Because how we feel it profoundly impacts how we work. But we're so often not aware of that, either individually or as a company, how the team are feeling, to then be able to affect it. And we have to get better at understanding that in the first place.
Yeah, and that leads me on to a question for you, Nick, because up until now, the responsibility, I guess, for your health, it's kind of put on the employee, right? If you're stressed, sort it out. If you're overweight, sort it out. But what is your thoughts, sitting within sort of an internal HR role? Does that responsibility need to shift, and how can that happen?
I think it's already started to shift. I think we're seeing certainly a greater emphasis put on the HR team, but also the wider management team in general to monitor people's well-being. We have what is called an I'll just culture in our workplace. I'll just stay for 2 hours extra to get that done. I'll just check my emails on the way home. I'll just log on quickly for 10 minutes while I'm on holiday. And for me, this is something that, like Cate said, it's quite close to my heart. I'm the worst person in the office for checking emails at the weekends or after work. And I went on holiday at the end of last year, and my password expired to my phone the day that I left, so I couldn't get on any work emails for 2 weeks. And I realised halfway through that holiday that was the first time I've switched off from a work email in about 9 or 10 years. And it was the best holiday I've ever had. And we are starting to have to now try and push that into our staff. But that comes with its own challenges, embedding that the staff have to want to do this, they have to be engaged with it. Otherwise you'll find it another us and them situation.
Yeah.
It's just another HR principle that we might do. But we've been looking at it this week, is how many extra hours people have been working. And it's a crazy number. We're lucky because we've got a good brand. People come to us because of the brand, and they're very engaged, but that makes them want to stay at work longer. They are pushing themselves too far, and we're seeing more and more people off with stress, and that shouldn't be the case. It should be less.
So what do you do about it? What sort of initiatives and ideas do you have?
So the first one is the simple one. Everyone has to turn off their work emails when they go on holiday for more than a week. We're starting to get the duty managers and the store managers to say, my shift's finished, this is not my problem until I get to work tomorrow. Okay, yes, store managers, slightly extenuating circumstances if the burglar alarm goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's part of their job to go and deal with it, unfortunately. But people are becoming reliant on people picking up emails. And at the end of the day, if it's urgent, they're not going to send you an email saying, please call me. They're going to pick up the phone, and they can still do that if you haven't got your work emails on. So
No, they never would.
No. So we're trying. Not saying we've got all the answers, but we're trying to bring in some new things like that to try and get people to take time away from work.
So this is a question for all of you. What are you like? Because at the moment we're talking about the stresses imposed from working. What about other aspects? And I'm thinking, Chieu, this may play into you. What else can you do to support, staff members?
I think it starts with communication. I think, a lot of these things, and we're really bad at it, even though we're a tech company, managers need to learn how to communicate better with their staff, to signal what is okay to talk about and what they can do, right? So once you establish what we call set of values, one of the values that we have is called zero fear. And it's a cultural thing. So if you allow people to just voice their opinion in what we call a psychologically safe environment, and emphasize that, make it a common thing, an acceptable thing, that will improve communication. And if you can improve communication, you ultimately improve the culture. And the culture of supporting well-being starts with that for us. And I think when we talk to companies, what we're trying to do is not just give them perks and benefits, we're actually changing the culture. And that starts with communication, starts with the values, starts with having senior management acknowledging that this is important to us. And they live and they breathe and they act and they walk the walk and talk the talk. And it trickles down all the way through. So that's what I'd say.
Cate?
Tell me the question again, sorry.
Other things that we can do to support staff at work?
Other things you can do to support staff at work. I mean, I suppose the major thing is about understanding what it is that they want. But, what we talk a lot about is about how you can create properly people-first cultures. And that can cover so many different areas. So by understanding in the first place what the changes are you need to make, then going ahead with those. And I think, one of the greatest challenges that modern businesses have to face is flexibility. How are they going to tackle that? Because actually the greatest problem with flexibility is that what is the underlying thing at the heart of it is it's all about trust. It's all about trust and it's all about empowerment. And what we have at the moment, the problem that I think that we have at the moment, the greatest problem that we have at the moment is the shift in generations. You've got two generations who are vying against each other, one which says quite clearly, I don't trust you, and one that says, I really need to be trusted. And the problem between that is that it's just not merging in the middle because, to your point, they're not communicating particularly well with each other. I think the other thing as well that we could also be considering doing as well is about thinking about how we ensure that all the voices are heard within a company. Now, when I talk about that, I talk about diversity, of course, but the point actually being as well is that what we can all do is step into responsibility and step into leadership a lot more. The problems that you can have within a company is that they are led invariably, and I'm going to say this cautiously, pale, male and stale, and led by that small group here. And actually in many instances those people are often the most risk averse. And actually what we need to get really good at is how we can ensure that more voices are heard to create change much more quickly and actually create companies that are right for this modern world. And that, for me, is the most expedient way of doing it.
Anything to add, Nick? Or
No, I think communication is the key. Just letting people know that it's okay to talk about things. And it goes, something Chieu said, is making sure that managers are capable of talking to people. So we do manager training now, we do mental health first aid training, so that if somebody is having a problem, then their store manager or their line manager should be the first person they speak to.
Okay, let's move on a little bit and look at it more from kind of a entrepreneur or businesses who want to enter this space. What kind of challenges have you guys seen? Because at the moment, I feel like workplace wellness is still very much a nice to have rather than an essential. What challenges have you guys seen with getting companies to really buy in this vision? Open it up to any of you.
I think the problem mainly is that most instances people see this as a perk, and actually I think that what we really need to do is to demonstrate that it is the thing that can completely evolve your business, and actually if it aligns with your business objectives, we can provide evidence of how well it's working and how it's the thing that's actually going to elevate you and to help in order to hit those objectives. And that's quite hard because in many instances people don't trust it. They don't feel that actually it's going to make any difference. It's seen as a little bit fluffy. And I think sometimes we then really need to think about how we change the terminology around it. I think we need to think about it much more as preventative and actually creating change rather than something that just comes in at crisis point. And that, for me, what you start doing then is you start thinking about how you can take your team to peak performance, and that's a combination of both kind of psychological insight and resilience as well. And that makes a real change to a team and how they're performing, rather than it just being wellness that comes in to help you once you're in a crisis.
Do you have any sort of success stories or examples?
I'm so pleased you asked. Yes. Actually, I suppose that the one thing about this as well is that we are always affected by, honestly, it's what metrics we can work with. In many instances, clients just aren't prepared for that, don't want to look into these kind of areas because it does prove that maybe there might be a problem in the first place. But we are very fortunate. We've now shown with a couple of clients the effect that we've had on attrition levels. One client, we took them down from 33% to 0% in 1 year, which was amazing. And then we have had other instances of demonstrations on productivity. And in fact, the one that where we affected the attrition levels, it actually came down to a saving of £1.5 million over that year, which, suddenly you can't argue with that, and that's what I think we need, empirical evidence to prove that this stuff really works.
Chieu, tell me more about it.
Yeah, so I think the challenge with selling this into businesses is to understand who you're selling it to, right? The stakeholders. And some of the blockers that we've seen are So when we talk to businesses, we talk to HR directors and managers, and they love us, and they get what we're trying to say and what we're trying to do, but they're not really good at internal selling. So the blockers are typically the finance directors or the MD, who's like, okay, right, is this another program that you want to run? Why now? And how much does it cost? And so that's the challenge. So we help HR professionals and directors to sell internally. So we do things like creating a report called the financial cost of disengagement. So it was, it's something we created specifically for FDs because that's the world they live in. They need to see the numbers. So we will calculate, what does it cost to replace an employee? The recruitment costs, the training costs, the lack of productivity. All these things that you can add up. And so it's like, this is a cost to your business now. We're making it a lot easier for you to digest the real impact of the business, even though what you think is very fluffy and soft, it really isn't, because we're helping you translate these things into real tangible business results and impact. So that's one of the ways that we approach this, is to really understand who you're working with and speak their language and bring them to your side. So that's been really effective for us.
And do you find that any specific type of initiatives hit the story home harder? You can come in and say, I'm offering gym memberships, or I'm offering subsidised, food, or I can't think of anything good, I'm rubbish at doing that on the spot. But do you find that anything specific, actually, when you bring that value proposition, like the companies actually really understand it?
Sure. So Perkbox is a lot more than perks. So that's the key thing that I like to talk about. So we started with perks, and that's a key pillar. So we actually have, like I said, we have insights, we have recognition, we have medical. Insights is actually a big part of what we do, because we can now measure what people do and how they're reacting to it. So you can do before and after the effects of these programs. And perks for us is anything that you can upload your own perks now. So it could be a dog. It could be 10 a.m. starts because the team's been working hard the whole week, and it's a perk that a manager can just tick off. So there's lots of cool ways in which we define perks. It's all about making people happy and engaged, right? So we're extending that definition. So it's the whole platform, really. I think people like it. And it's a very approachable brand. People talk about Perkbox. They say, hey, look, we went to the cinema together over the weekend. We send them out emails. So I think what sets us apart from just any kind of competitor is the fact that we're very approachable, very human brand. We speak to the HR equally as much as to the employees, and we want to make sure that they're enjoying what they're trying to do. And that insight is key, because now we can measure that. And we have a really nice, what we call a heat map, where we have different teams on the left, and then across the top would be the different categories like leadership, communication, career development. And so you can actually measure what people are feeling like in real time and in sort of a snapshot as well. So a lot of these things are all coming together. We're a tech company, so we're not a perks company, and we're using technology. And the other thing that we've noticed that, we target a lot of the businesses that have millennials really love what we present to them, because it's such a easy thing for them to digest, and it's on the app. So I think we've hit a chord in that sense, because about 20-30% of the marketplace are comprised of millennials now. So it's a big part of the working population, and millennials, we can talk about that later, but it's a bit different demographic from generations before, and we're serving them very well in that sense.
Fantastic. Nick, from an internal perspective, does Planet Organic just deal with their own stuff, as in you handle it internally, the wellness programs, or would you take on people from outside?
No, we'll definitely engage with people from outside. Yeah, I like your attrition rate reduction, so we'll talk later. But we've got a relatively small budget for it, so we have to be very, very careful with who we engage with, and really see that value proposition and that return on investment. So like what Chieu said, have that understanding of that what an HR director wants to hear is different to what a finance director wants to hear. We had one chap ring up 2 weeks ago, I won't mention the name of the business, but he was trying to sell breakfasts for your employees to a food producer. So it's knowing your market as well, and really doing a bit of research on the business.
Can you just walk us through a little bit more about the key players that you have to get buy-in from if you're coming as an outsider? And this goes to all of you as well.
From our point of view, it's very much HR, so it's HR driven, and then it's up to us to get that we will work with them to form a decent business case to put to the finance director. But we also have an HR budget which we are in total control over. So if something is coming in within our budget, then we've got, carte blanche to do that if we think it's valuable to the business.
And just to pick up on that, how developed does the idea have to be? Can someone come to you with a concept, or do they need to be more like Cate and have all the figures? And
probably a bit more like Cate and have the figures. I think the concept would be good, but I think at the moment with where we are, we would probably more likely to be partnering with someone who has a bit of established history and can give us some demonstrable evidence on reducing turnover.
I think that's part that, I know, I'm sure we're going to talk about trends in a moment, but I think one of the challenges with this space, and, I know you said about the differences since we started 4.5 years ago, not only the growth, but the receptivity to it. It used to be a case of, I go and knock on a door and it was like, oh no, or maybe you'd be lucky someone might tick a box of wellness. Now the growth in it is brilliant, and everyone realizes you're almost quite conspicuous in your absence if you don't do it. But there are so many people out in the marketplace now. I mean, dear God, if you throw a stone into Soho, you're going to hit an executive coach. But, are they actually any good? And, there's a lot of snake oil out there, and we've talked a lot about that. And I think you have to be really good at cutting out the chaff, as it were. And hopefully that's certainly what my business intends to do. But actually this stuff is so unregulated as well. And I think we need to look at how we can do that. And, you're affecting people's lives. Mm-hmm. And I think within corporate settings, that becomes even more important, because that person then, has to do a job, and also it's the effect that it has within their community as well, because not only it's affecting them, but their colleagues directly as well. So I think we need to get really cautious about that.
Anything to add, Chieu?
No, that sounds good.
Okay, well, let's lead into trends, because you picked up on that. So what areas of opportunities, what trends are out there in the moment in this space? Again, this is for any of you to answer.
So I guess technology is a big deal. I think, back to my point around millennials. They live and breathe social media, right? So, workplaces, to be competitive, need to address that. For example, millennials are forcing management to be better, right? If you're not a good manager, they'll leave the company. And if you really hate you, they'll put a review on Glassdoor just as a thank you. And so businesses are realizing all this. So they're adjusting to that. And it's like, what do we do? So either we go with the times and compete, or we're left behind. It's a good thing that millennials are doing what they're doing, because it's pushing management forward. And I think that's the key to this problem, is that senior management needs to accept the problem and learn. And sometimes they need to look in the mirror, and the problem could be themselves. And when you're at the top of the pyramid, it's really hard to get feedback, and it's really hard for someone to tell you that you are the problem. You need to change yourselves. So how do you get that to change? And it trickles down from them. So that's the kinds of things that we see. And I think that's really technology, the fact that senior manager recognizing that they're part of the problem, and obviously get a coach if you need to, right? But that's what we're seeing.
Cate?
I suppose personalization, I think, is coming through quite a lot. I think people now, rather than it just being one thing, I think as this stuff has grown, then rather than it just being corporate wellness, for example, it's suddenly there's mental health, there's behaviors for leadership, there's personal development, all of these different areas, and people are going in and having probably, I suppose, the really big thing about it, the conversations that we have now. A lot of people have got a lot of knowledge about this stuff. Then, so we're starting much more open conversations, and then they're actually then able to go out and choose the stuff that's really right for them. And I suppose then the final point to that as well, talking about tech is making sure that it's tech being used in the best way, and tech that really works for humans, and actually improves their lives, rather than it just being something most likely within companies, where we see most often that tech is actually simply being chosen for commercial purposes. I'm really conscious about, I keep going on about the whole thing around preventative measures, rather than it just being something that comes in at a symptom side. I want there to be really great tech out there that will help us understand what's happening either for individuals or within companies before the stuff actually happens, so that we can go in and we can serve that individual, or we can go in and we can improve an area within a company. And I don't know if anyone was in the earlier session where we were talking about that, making sure though that there's no danger about it as well, and that it wouldn't then be used for negative purposes. So I think that's a really interesting area.
Nick, anything to add?
I think tech's really important, but I think everything has its place. We have a very varied population in our stores in terms of staff, and we did some HR forums recently and we asked people what they wanted. And a lot of people said, I want help with financial well-being. Yeah. I want help providing a budget. No one's ever sat down to it. And it's difficult for some of the staff that come to us as well, because some of them come from an environment where they're paid weekly. And then they come to an environment where they're paid 4 weekly. So that's a very different way of budgeting. But also, people just want to have conversations around how they feel at work with peers or with people that from the outside. Our HR team is very visible within the stores. We're always out in stores, so people are encouraged to come and talk to us. So I think tech plays a great part and it's very important, but there's nothing wrong with a good old conversation.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than a good old conversation.
So we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to open it up to you guys. Do you have any questions at all? Apparently there's a mic going around, or you can shout.
Okay, I'm quite loud, so I'm confident. In terms of, you said about switching off your emails when you go on holiday and when you finish work, and obviously that is really important, but how do you manage that when people need to also have flexible working? So obviously there are people who are requesting more flexible working because they have caring responsibilities. So some people want to start later, and they inevitably, to pick up the hours, they will want to work in the evening, and they will send some emails. And how do you make sure that other people don't feel obliged to read them and reply to them without sort of singling out those individuals who have the flexibility versus those who want to switch off?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have got a really flexible workforce. Obviously, we have run shift patterns as well. So just being in retail and hospitality in its nature is flexible working. I think where we're coming from to begin with that is when people actually go on a block of 1 week's leave, 2 weeks leave. We're still finding that people are answering emails, are spending more time on their phones than they should be with their family. But you're never going to stop people from doing it.
Can I just add in there? I think the point is that it sets the intention that your company has said, look, you do not answer emails in the evening. The fact that you're even recognising it sets an intention. To the point, though, that, that it isn't going to work for everyone. And the very nature of the most flexible company means that you will make your work work for you however you need to. And I think that both things need to be recognised. I think the company has to stand up, be really transparent about that, be really open about it, and say, look, this is going to work for some of you and not for others, but we have set an intention that we don't want you to do it between 7 and 7 or whatever that is. And that, for me, says everything about the company in the first place.
I host calligraphy workshops, and both for public and private clients, but I'm trying to get more into the corporate and HR world. But I'm finding pitching really difficult because you were talking about having like evidence-based stuff, Nick. And at this kind of stage, I don't have that. I know that it promotes mindfulness and it reduces anxiety and therefore really plays into this theme. But I just wondered if you had any advice for people who are like not Perkbox size, tiny one-woman band.
Actually, I can help with that. So even for us, I think we run into a lot of challenges, but testimonials are very, very powerful, right? It's not what you can do, it's what others say about you, right? So collect as many as you can and show evidence. Like, these are the people that used what I've provided, and these are the results of it, and video testimonials, if you can, even better, right? Yeah.
One other thing as well is the asset that you have at the moment, being an entrepreneur. I'm making an assumption here, you probably don't have wild amounts of money, but what you do have is your time. Put your time into it and provide the evidence then. And what I mean by that is run a free session, and then you'll have all the evidence in the world that you need.
So
run it in-house, run the free session, offer it free or offer it at a discount, because then it's still got some kind of cost attached and some kind of value. But then off the back of that, you've then got evidence, and say to them, look, I'll run this free for you, and under the commitment that if it goes well, then you will commit to continue working with me. And then you've got loads of other testimonials that you can use beyond that. Start small, create advocacy every single time.
You measured, you You mentioned the importance of conversation. You also talked a little bit about heat maps. How does the whole plethora of mindfulness and mindfulness apps fit into this? Because that's something that's quite individual. The data's not going anywhere, and it's not picking up how people are feeling through a conversation or some sort of heat map of well-being. So my question, how does the whole headspace and the likes fit in to an improvement of corporate well-being?
In terms of measurement, you're saying, well, the heat map that we provide is at an aggregate level and on a team level. Obviously, if it's a personal problem or something like that, like we said, like Mick saying, have that conversation, because you can measure company-wide and team-wide, and then you can start isolating groups of people that are having issues. For example, we had a bit of turmoil in the dev team because we were launching lots of new products, people were being stretched, and you can totally see they're not happy, right? And then we will break that down. It's like, all right, and it's real-time measurement at an aggregate level. It's not supposed to solve the problem. The best problems are solved one-to-one. And sometimes it may not be the people in the building. You might have to bring in somebody external to have sort of a confidential conversation. Mental well-being is very sensitive. So if you're not qualified to talk about it, you shouldn't. You should seek advice. That's what I'd say.
We have a system at work called Power, and you go on and you take several surveys, and it suggests plans on how to sleep better, how to work better, how to get more exercise, and that actually links in with things like Calm and Headspace, so that there you can provide evidence that you've been doing that, and then you can increase your power rating, and it kind of is designed to give you more of a holistic approach to how you're living your life.
Yeah.
Is that built in internally? Power?
It's an external provider that's been built into our platform.
I have a question.
I've got the mic, but you go.
You win.
Okay, so I just want to reinforce the point before I ask the question. Cate, you touched on line management and how a lot of the time that's where kind of the problem is. And I work for a corporate where I know most of the attrition comes from poor management, and most of the time as well, to your point, they're not really wanting to admit the fact that there's an issue from where they are. In some of the examples that you've got, can you tell us about the strategies you've used to work on the mindset of the manager that doesn't want to admit that there's an issue?
Yeah.
Listen to that overwhelming.
Okay, so it's hard if that manager doesn't want to be involved. It depends really who. Okay, so I can give you some live examples. We worked with one MD within a company, and he was very up for it. But then, and we started working on a program with him, and we provided proof of the challenges that were happening within the organisation. He then shared that, and he hadn't had sign-off previously with the CTO, the CEO, the CPO, and they were all up in arms about it, and then placed the blame everywhere else within the company, rather than it being upon themselves. So that is a bad example of how it went wrong. Now, what could have happened differently? Got the buy-in from them in the first place. We have to be so careful with this stuff, because I genuinely know that that's where a lot of the challenge is, right? But me going in there and being totally bombastic about it is going to put them straight into fear mode. It's going to make them completely resistant to all of it, and then they'll shut it down rather than doing anything at all. And I think what we need to get really clever at is how we approach this stuff. If someone says to us about doing an audit, challenge us, we really want to know what's going on. Don't fucking challenge them, because actually they don't really want to be challenged that much. But what they want to know is actually, it's okay, there's a bit of a challenge here, but it's okay here as well. And in doing that, what we can then present is an argument that is a lot more palatable, but we can take them on that journey with us and feel like they're alongside us as well. So I suppose in answer to your question, it's about getting the right buy-in in the first place. It's about presenting a gentle but clear message, and then it's hand-holding of how we're going to make that difference. I have quite a big belief at the moment that the pace at which this world is moving, everyone doesn't know what to do. No one has time to investigate it themselves, and they want answers, but they don't want the answers to be too terrifying. So we have to get a little bit more clever about how we present it, and then provide complete pain relief of how we're going to deliver it, so it doesn't seem too scary or too hard or too different. But the thing is we just can't keep doing what we've always done. If we keep doing what we've always done, business is going to fail. We've got to do something different, but we've got to be careful about how we present that.
Sorry, last question.
Okay, so my question is, so I just really want to pick up the question that was asked before, Nick, about the responsibility of the business versus the individual in terms of their own wellness. So what you said is around email behavior and those things are very work specific. But in an environment, I guess, where we have real issues around chronic health and things like that, and I've heard in America, for example, that managers are responsible for healthy eating, so giving their staff KPIs around healthy eating, around personal habits, because we all have our own decisions. We're in environments which are very stressful, and life is changing. But we all decide what we're going to eat. We all decide whether we're going to move. We all decide what time we go to bed, and those things obviously can enhance us and help us be more resilient. And my question is really around: do you see a situation where in this country where staff will be given KPIs around wellness, around things that only they can actually do?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're lucky, again, because a lot of people we employ are brand aware, and we make healthy food and we sell healthy food, so people are into that. We run an induction every Monday for the whole year because our turnover was high. And I think out of the 47 that we ran last year, we only had 4 where we didn't have someone who was vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, something like that. So possibly not within our business, because I think people manage their nutrition. But I think externally, yeah, definitely.
But actually, it's not just about nutrition, it's about your mindset.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been very lucky, because I was clueless and I started the business early, I just sort of defaulted to what's good for you. And I think that's a really powerful learning, which is every individual has a different requirement, and we as leaders, any of you wanting to lead, who has to deal with poor management, should leave if they've tried to change it, and because otherwise it won't change, right? Because there's only so much you can try. And then there's take the trainers to work, and if it's you that needs to go outside and get some fresh air, or if actually you need to turn up at a different time, you've also got to be a little bit determined about what is right in humanity.
Yeah.
Right, so people need to take a breath. I've built a brand called Centred, which is about stop, inhale and reset. My mum says I'm selling fresh air. The truth is, I'm selling something much better, which is the commodity to stop and have a think. And that is the most valuable commodity on earth, which is time. And actually, it's great that we're talking about this, but there are so many small things. You can paint the corridor yellow and call it the Sunshine Corridor. I swear to God, people can't be unhappy, right? But there are those small things, incremental, relentless care, demonstration by individuals that want to be passionate about health and well-being, will have an impact. And our kids are going to challenge us on this. They're going to challenge us on the planet. They're going to challenge us on all of the mistakes that we're making, and they're starting to speak out. I mean, I have to live with hideous 3 women, teenagers, they're my daughters. I mean, it's horrific. But actually, I would say to you that it's great that your opinion counts. So if your voice is not being listened to, I think the other thing is whatever business you work in, you've got to make some decisions, your own personal choices for what you consume and how you use your time.
And I'm going to have to stop you there, I'm afraid, because we are out of time. But you can carry on the conversation afterwards. I'm sure our panel will stick around. But